Hi, I'm Terry Lynch. I'm a physician, psychotherapist, best-selling mental health author, mental health educator, and the provider of a recovery-oriented mental health service. In this video, I want to talk about power in relation to depression. More specifically, perhaps, powerlessness in relation to depression. I've been specializing in mental health now for over 20 years. And for 15 years before that, I worked as a GP. So I have worked with hundreds and possibly a few thousand people who have been struggling with depression, who've been given a label or diagnosis of depression. And I have striven in my work to expand my understanding beyond the more typical medical understanding. I know the medical approach and I understand it very well, but there's much more to the experiences and behaviours that we come to describe as depression than what is covered within the medical model. If you're struggling with depression, and if I were to ask you about power, in particular if I was to ask you about your own sense of your power, and I was to say to you, there's a spectrum of power from a person feeling quite powerful in their everyday life to the opposite end of the spectrum, feeling quite powerless. And if I were to ask you, if you're struggling with depression, where would you place yourself? I would say that the vast majority of people who've attended me over the years, and perhaps every single one, would say that they felt powerless. Not powerful, but powerless, and rarely if ever felt powerful. This is a very significant reality within depression, and one that is missed quite often, and indeed quite often routinely, particularly within the medical approach to depression. This matters enormously because my sense of my power and your sense of your power influences enormously how you feel you can work in the world, how you feel you can make things work for you in the world, the things you feel you can do and the things you feel you cannot do. It also affects your sense of threat in the world. Fear, terror and dread, and feeling a sense of threat. These two are very common features of the experiences and behaviours that we come to call depression, and they're interlinked. So in my work with people who've been struggling with depression, I always look at the issue of power. And I've devised a way, a method, a system to enable people who work with me to progress gradually, small steps taken frequently, from that inner belief and conviction that they are powerless, bit by bit, progressing gently, gradually, but definitely to a position where they feel more powerful. This is a process that takes some time. But the people who've worked with me who have continued with this work will generally say to me that it's amongst the most valuable work we have done together. If you would like to see more of this topic of depression, power, self-empowerment, then I invite you to look at my longer video, 39-minute video actually, entitled Depression, Self-Empowerment and the Tennis Court, which you can access in the link in the text below this video and indeed through the button that's also linked to this presentation. I invite you to do so because if you're struggling with depression and the issue of power is part of your experience, a very painful part of the experience of depression, it's very painful, isn't it, to feel powerless, to feel that you're at the mercy of so many different things because you don't feel powerful. You don't even feel powerful enough to make yourself safe in the world. I invite you to look at this video and indeed to study the content of the video because this content has worked for so many people who have attended me over the years and it can work for you. So I invite you to look at the video, study the video, come back to the video many occasions.